focus obviously away from Romania. You know, we're going to be going global now, but you know, your perspective from the US is extremely valuable to have with us today. So I think we're into we've had 5 weeks already of losses for markets since the start of the Iran war on February the 28th. And that we've seen the most protracted fall in markets since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The war, is it escalating? I'm not sure. It could. So should we expect things to get worse?
No, absolutely not. So first of all, thank you everybody for having me. Like a typical American, I bought my own books here. I consider myself more an international businessman. For most of you in the room, you know me from different countries. I probably spend 60% of my time outside of America. Nobody spent more time as an American than in the Middle East. What our president's really doing is balancing power across the world. Whether you like him or not, that's irrelevant, right? I mean, my wife doesn't like me sometimes, okay? But the guy is taking on things that nobody else wanted. If you look at the world today, it's a chess match, it's not checkers. So if you look at a 3 or 4 or 5 week cycle, you can't look at it as investment. The problem is the analysts don't understand the global economy. 20 years ago, you had brilliant analysts that really understood how to underwrite stocks. You didn't have quant funds. They were getting in and out of markets. So this is a great opportunity for hedge funds to do long-term investors. Okay, if I'm Coca-Cola, if I'm Romania, if I'm Minister of Finance, I think said it beautifully, bringing foreign direct investments in this country, airports, toll roads, and things like that. You know, these are things that are going to be around 5, 10 years. You've got to take a long view. So by opening up Venezuela, by opening up Syria, we saw the leader left right away when Trump came in. By going after and focusing on Iran, what are you doing? Is you're looking at balancing power of oil, which is really a balance of power across the world, where not one country can really have a toehold on another country. And you've seen that with Russia, with Europe. So I think, you know, candidly, this president has done an incredible job of balancing power and taking risks. Most presidents are focused on midterms. He's not. He's focused on doing what's best for the world today. And so the next, to answer your question directly, it's not going to get worse. Things are going to end soon, very quickly. We're ahead of schedule. And what people don't know is what's going on behind the scenes. It looks like a very rash move. I've heard some very ignorant statements as I've been around the world, visiting with President Kraboa, I find one of the most brilliant leaders, in my opinion. I think this guy's going to change the entire Asian region, and especially Indonesia. I think it's going to be second to none. If I were an investor, I'd be in Indonesia, Romania, Greece. These are markets I'm spending a lot of time. Why Romania? You've got a very smart minister of finance who really understands the markets. You've got a strong leader, your prime minister, who's not afraid to take risks and do good things. So to answer, the long answer to your question would be, I believe things are going to stabilize, and this is where opportunities happen. So if you look at 2008, forget about 22, was really weird. It was a country move, and then everybody was trying to play favoritism. It wasn't a geopolitical play. This is a geopolitical play. So you look at market collapse and wave, more financial firms and more people made money from 2010 to 2020 than ever in history. So this is a great opportunity to invest in markets because this is a very, very short-term problem. And the end of the problem, thanks to our president, the end of our problem and our partners and our allies, end of our problem is going to be second. And the Europeans, and I don't need to be critical anybody, but I just would ask for people to be, you know, when you see a beautiful movie, you don't know how it's going to end. I would ask for the end of the movie and then write the critic, right? I would tell you that at the end of the movie, I know how it's going to end. I'm talking to people like the future Prime Minister of Iraq. And I can tell you everybody's very excited, but the nonsense to stop. Okay, there's been drug trafficking all through this region, very seriously. There's been illegal oil trading. There's been terrorism money used through that. I don't know any country in the world that wants to see any of those three things in this country. In Sweden, you saw it. I mean, not to pick on Sweden, my wife's from there, but that should be a great example of what you don't do to a country. Sweden was one of the greatest economies in the world in 2000. Look at it today. So.
Well, yeah, it's great to get that perspective because I guess for many of us, we seem to be living in very confusing times, and obviously the old world order is gone. It's been unraveling for decades, actually, and it's not clear in which direction we're going. So I guess people find it hard to get an anchor on, what is going on, because I think everybody realizes we're in this era of intensified great power rivalry and competition, and the old order is not coming back. So then it's a question of trying to work out. We're not privy to the internal strategic discussions that are going on of what is the objective here. So at least it's good to hear the other perspectives from somebody who more of an insider on the rationale for what's happening now in the Middle East and following Venezuela. But Mike, we'll try and stick to markets rather than geopolitics, even though we can't avoid it. But I guess, the question is, I think you've already said some of them, what are the lessons that you've learned over the past 5 years or so in this kind of new era of geopolitical, volatility, uncertainty, to help you navigate shocks, turbulence? You say you take the long view, which is obviously good advice. Don't get too carried away by the short term, but take the long view as investors. So any other lessons that you can share with investors? Is it look for the opportunities, hedge? What are the kind of main takeaways?
My recommendation is to go to places people haven't gone.
Yeah.
So if you look at traditional investors, private equity, 20 years ago was only, you're talking 3, 4, 5 firms that could write serious checks. Here in Romania, the airport, the port, the toll roads, you're talking $3, $4 billion checks. Very few people can do that. I heard the gentleman, I understand the thought behind it, but if you look at Mexico, you look at Poland, you look at many of these countries, which I'm very close to, the largest industry leaders, Carlos Slim. Carlos, the richest man in the world, but the country, the shareholders are not benefiting as much. He's worth $150 billion. The shareholders haven't gone up. Floating a company on a stock exchange, especially a state-owned business, the best thing is to bring in a private equity firm, not a country. A great example is, these are partners and good people, Abu Dhabi, Saudi, etc. But when you have a very prominent private equity firm, you have 37 countries' money. So you have pension funds from Canada, US, Mexico, Norway, Sweden, Saudi, Abu Dhabi. So when they invest in an airport or a port in a country, you have 37 countries behind you to protect it. And floating a company with a very small liquidity, with a 60% share owned by the government, I can show you the math. PPC, 3.5 times EBITDA. That company should be an 8 times business. The Athens airport, 7 times EBITDA, should be trading at 10, 11, 12, 13 times EBITDA. So when you float something with very little liquidity, the EBITDA goes up, the share price is the same, so the multiple goes down. So I think the opportunity for an investor, in my opinion, would be to look at markets that people didn't traditionally invest in. I'm very bullish on here in Romania, on infrastructure. I'm very bullish on Greece, strong prime minister, very, very brilliant minister of finance, big fan, strong leaders, and people that don't have so much from an international view. Remember, I travel the world, I'm with prime minister presidents around the world, and leaders around the world every day. I've been home 6 weeks. I'll be going home for my 50th birthday tomorrow. So, or else my wife and kids are going to kill me. So I think going to Indonesia, nobody would have ever thought to go to Indonesia. Turkey, 7 million people, 6 million people. You got the airport. If I would have told you 20 years ago that you'd have 130 million people coming to Istanbul airport, I would have laughed out of the room. Today it's the most successful airport in the world. It's going to pass Dubai this year. It is an incredible, not short of anything, but an incredible story. So where I'm going with that is, nobody would have ever thought to go invest in Turkey in an airport. Nobody would have ever thought to come invest in an airport in Romania. That's why I like to get ahead of the markets. So my advice is, if you're going to do the same thing over and over again, you're competing against 10 people. That means you're going to either lose the process or you're going to overpay. If you go into a market and partner with the government properly, the government goes up, tourism goes up, people in their country feel better about going in and out of an airport, they feel protected by the port, more tax revenue comes into the port and into the country, it's safer, you have United States people that are helping out. We really like to help out around the world. So my advice as an investor would be looking to markets that you traditionally wouldn't be investing in.
Okay. I mean, there used to be probably much more of that in the old days when people looked at frontier markets where others weren't going, not venturing. There seemed to be in the past more appetite for that kind of risk-taking in a way. Seems to be less of it these days. So, I mean, in general, risk appetite seems to have declined. So it's reassuring that there's still people out there taking on risk. Not in a, obviously weighing up market size, quality of the political leadership and so on. Those things are important, you're saying.
So let me just comment on that, because I think it's important. There is absolutely no risk to invest in Romania. None. It's actually the most...
No, not here.
Yeah. Even Indonesia, Turkey, Greece, these are great opportunities. So you got to look at it as the next America, right? And having foreign direct investments, and this is where lack of the international markets, what the world wants to see in these countries is foreign direct investment. That's what, if I was a Minister of Finance in any country, I'd be looking at FDI. Because how do I get money in, reduce my debt to GDP, and how do I get money coming into the country to actually underwrite long infrastructure projects instead of using my capital? And I love when I go to countries and say, well, we're only paying 3% debt from the local banks. And I say, great, that means the country's giving away money to you. That's the worst thing you do. Bank of America would never give Boeing a 3% loan, ever in history. So, U.S. is much more advanced when it comes to the financial markets. Obviously, just because of time and how many people now thought they'd be investing in. But, I think this is very low risk and very big opportunity, especially right now. And if you look at, the war, it's a short thing. We're looking at, I would bet my life this is going to be over the next 4 weeks.
Okay. What about sectors? Are there particular sectors, do you think, that are a kind of surefire kind of win place to go or not?
So, there's no magic bullet in the world of sectors. So, I'll give you a couple of examples of just the way I think and the way we put several $100 billion to work. When everybody was chasing e-com, I wasn't buying anything at 30 times EBITDA. So everybody's coming with all that, and they've made great money. Amazon, they've done incredibly well. But that's where there's risk, when you're paying such a high multiple. But what I said was, wait, you can't put a dollar bill into a phone, right? So what did we do? We bought a lot of credit card processing at 8 times EBITDA. The market, because the volume went to 20 times EBITDA, and then we exited at 20 times. So it's really looking at where's the opportunity for advancement, if you look at stability, infrastructure, toll roads, concessions, ports, airports, you're going to get a 9, 10, 11, 12% yield. You can help build the country up. Country by country, it varies. The problem with most private equity is they forget where you come from. I grew up dirt poor, welfare, had zero my whole life. I don't forget where I came from. So just because you're flying around a jet and you're living in a big home, and if you forget where you come from, you don't know where you're going. And you look at Indonesia, for example, you've got 80% poverty. How do I help those people go up? Because if you can get the lower income to middle income, it changes the whole economic environment of the country. So a simple thing like gift cards. Gift cards are not a gift. It's a prepaid card. And people are cashing their checks or using wallet money movement at 10, 11, 12%. If I make $400 a month, that's $40 out of my pocket. If I can put it on a card, a prepaid card, I'm saving $40 that's going back into that person's pocket, which means what are they going to do? That's disposable income that they're going to go spend money on, and tax revenues go up and they go up. So it's, as the old adage, your parents and everybody else tells you, it's not how much you make, it's how much you save. So I think there's opportunities market by market, region by region. In Greece, I think there's a huge opportunity in infrastructure. That airport could also, it's an hour and a half away. Why is one 130 and why is one 25 million? And you saw the impact on Turkish tourism. It's gone through the roof. Incredible. You have the same opportunity here with building one of the most unique airport tied to a logistics center, tied to the toll road going to the port. You create a whole eco-cycle, and you can become one of the largest logistic regions by far. You're right. I could throw a football. Gosh, I could throw a football to Ukraine, right? So it's the most valuable opportunity in my opinion here in this country.
Okay, we're probably out of time, but this final word may be more looking to the future. Anything you might share with us in terms of how you see things panning out over the next few years in terms of, global capital flows, where they're going to be going, what's your feeling?
I think you're
going.
Yeah, I think you've seen way too many people pivot to private credit, and I think the reason is again the lack of ingenuity and the lack of hard work ethic. So it's very easy to go write credit at underwriting debt instead of at 6% and 10%. Private equity is heavy lifting and investments heavy lifting. So I think where you're going to see market change. Me personally, Ares by far was the first person, followed by Mike Milken, who invented private credit. Ares came up with private credit in 1993. Tony Russell was years ahead of us, 30 years ahead of us. Now everybody's following along. Would you go build an Amazon today? No. They were the first to market. So I'd be looking at more structured equity, where you have a floor and a ceiling. So if I come to any country, where I think you're going to see a huge opportunity, and where you're going to see a lot of countries and businesses take money, is pref equity. So if I come in with a floor of 6%, it's at 26% equity return. But after 15% returns, it waterfalls back to the company, or waterfalls back to the country. So that the country gets the benefit the more they grow, and there's a very safe return, but it's not debt that I owe somebody anything, and I can take the debt off the current country's balance sheet. That's where I think the future of the markets will be over the next 4, 5, 6 years. Pref equity, I think you're going to see 60 to 70% of the market go to that. I think the next 5 years is really going to depend on the next leaders that we have in place, also in which region you invest in. So for example, in America today, I think we have a huge opportunity. I think we've got some work to do on nobody's perfect. He's gotten off to an incredible start. I think you'll see him make some very big changes in the next 3 months that you'll be very pleased with. And I think with those things, you'll actually see a huge success. Somebody brought up tariffs and that. It's really a thoughtful mindset. The world can charge tariffs. We're the only ones who didn't charge. So we didn't do anything. It's just reciprocal. All we're doing is doing the same thing countries have done for us. I think we could have been more thoughtful on the negotiation. Our Commerce Secretary, I think, really laid out a better model that was better for the world, and how that person, how we could have looked at how we can actually impact those countries. I keep using Indonesia as an example. We charge